Welcome to TOPLINE HOTLINE.
It's Thursday, you little devil. It's Thursday. Come on in, it's warm. It's TOPLINE HOTLINE every day. The day where you say what's in store for go to market in 2024.
Oh,
Oh,
look
boom
at
shaka.
that.
I'm freestyling.
Doesn't it
Words.
seem like it's like poets? Doesn't it seem like Sam with his beanie? It's like poets' night at a coffee
Yes,
shop, and he's sitting up.
woman. Whoa, man.
I was telling Sam, he looks really good in a beanie. Sam also has really good skin, which pops out when he wears a beanie.
This is the best day of my life.
Okay, let's jump in.
It's TOPLINE HOTLINE, everybody. Sam Jacobs, Asad Zaman, AJ Bruno. You're listening to us. Thanks for listening. It's one question or two from the bowels of the Pavilion CRO community. We're here to answer your questions about go-to-market. That's the setup.
We have an interesting one. Okay. So our CROs out there seeing variable plans that look like the following. Earn nothing on your annual variable plan until you reach a threshold of attainment to your target. Example, you start to earn variable compensation once you achieve 70% of your ending ARR target, and it scales up from there but pays nothing until you get 70% for the year. Is this fair? Is this unfair? Should we pay on every dollar? Should we have thresholds? Questions. Sam, what do you think?
What do I think? Step into my office, little boy.
Shut the door.
and it is a boy because we know who asked this question. Here's what I think. I think first of all, I think a couple things. First, I don't think CROs should be paid 50-50 comp, meaning 50% base, 50% variable at all. I think they should be on the same plan that the executive team is on. And if the executive team gets a bonus, then the CRO should get a bonus, and that should be the same bonus. And I think they should be tied to long-term company results, and they should focus on what their equity is worth by driving value. Now, and I mean that. And so I think variable comp should be a much, much smaller percentage of compensation for revenue leaders than it currently is, because I think go-to-market is a team sport. That's why we created the go-to-market consortium. That's what we talk about. True enterprise value is created from retention, not necessarily from new bookings. And you can't grow if you don't deliver recurring impact to the customer, which is what me and Jocko and a bunch of other people talk about every single day. Now, let's assume that you do have a 50-50 variable comp plan, and this person is saying, well, that is my plan. Is it fair that I don't get paid until I get to 70%? And I would say, sir or madam or they, you're lucky to get paid at 70%. Because if AJ, me, or you, Asad, goes to the board and says, we're going to miss our number by 30%, you're fired. You can't miss the number by 30%. So typically, my cutoff is typically 80%, to be completely honest. And at 80%, I think you should be paid 50% of your variable comp. And then I think there should be a step function, maybe at 90%. And typically, I will pay pro rata, meaning the same percentage of attainment, beginning at 93%. Why 93%? I don't know, but that's what feels right to me. So from 93 to 100, I say that you get 100, if you get 97%, you get 97%. But I think it should be a very, very steep drop off, because the business can't survive if you miss the target. You're not an account executive. Yeah. You're running the revenue organization. If you can't design it to cut closer, then you miss the forecast. You don't know what you're doing.
Sam, there's so many questions around that. So the first is, you said, I believe that they should have a smaller variable component. So it shouldn't be 50-50. It should be like a 70-30, maybe a 60-40, right?
I think they should be paid however the executive team is paid.
Are you saying that the OTE should come down? Or are you saying let's maintain the same OTE, but give them much higher base salaries than we've been giving them and a much smaller...
OTE should come down.
OTE should come down, right?
Yes.
So the argument there is that OTEs got really inflated over the last couple of years. And
yeah, it's the same argument I make every time on this show. The unit economics, the math doesn't work. The math just doesn't work. You're a big shareholder if you're a CRO. You're a big shareholder. And we just talked on earlier this week about, if you don't value the equity, then give it back. Because me and AJ value our equity.
Yeah. Second
So,
part of that question,
that's
I
what I
agree
think.
with this. Second part of the question is, should it be uncapped? So at 97%, you get 97% of your variable. That makes a lot of sense. Should you get 172% of your variable at 172% a plan if you're a CRO?
Maybe. I mean, again, if we're on this model, then sure. I don't believe in capped compensation models for variable comp. But fundamentally, what I think is that, however the executive team gets paid, that's how you should get paid. If the executive team has variable comp that's uncapped, then
I
you
like
should
this.
too.
I like this thought process. It creates alignment.
I just think, again, like and then I want to hear what AJ has to say, obviously, especially because he runs a commission planning company. But what's the underlying thing here? There's so many parts to 0% interest rates. There's so many parts to it. And this is one of the parts. This is one of the downstream strands. Did you ever, if the deals don't renew, right, then we can't afford to pay you Jack
Look
Diddley
at
Strong.
that. I like that. I like
Right?
Jack Diddley Strong.
Like, new business is not the only thing that's important. The thing that drives long-term growth is retention. And oftentimes the CRO isn't even responsible for retention. So all of these people thinking that they deserve $500,000 a year for a business that's losing money. It's like, well, what's the fundamental SaaS assumptions are predicated on a bunch of things that aren't true. And this is one of those things. Yeah, I think OTE should come down, and I think we should all be paid the same. And I think we should emphasize that, yeah, it might feel like a bum deal, but you're 37 and you get to be part of the executive team, and you got to say you're a chief revenue officer. And if that's not an important part of how you think about compensation, then take a hike, pal. Get
And
the hell
also,
out of
like,
here.
I think what sometimes people don't realize is that there is the impact of that. Let's say you're making $450,000, and let's say another offer is $500,000. Your lifestyle is the same between those numbers, right? It's not like when you're getting paid 40 and you get paid 70,000 and you see a significant uplift in the quality of food you eat, your socks don't have holes, your house might get a little bit better. So early on in your career, each $10,000 has a significant impact on your quality of life. Later on in life, the amount of money you need to make to feel a difference is much larger. So I feel like sometimes people take OTEs that look really attractive, but they haven't asked two questions. How attainable is that OTE, number one? And number two, does this the delta between these two offers, is my life going to feel different? Because if it's not going to feel different, then take the one that you're more excited about as a fundamental opportunity. AJ, how do you feel about all of what we just spoke about? But also, can you click in on the individual contributor side? I've always felt it's weird that an account executive hits a number that gets them fired, but still was rewarded with variable compensation in that year as well. Shouldn't they also have like a threshold before which they don't make commissions?
Well, first off, you're not going to hear me disagree with Sam on this. In fact, I would just like very hard agree. And to the point where this question comes up many, like our customers, the founder CEOs of a company, a roofing company that has been a great customer of ours for the last few years, reached out to me and said, hey, I have a director that we just promoted to VP of sales. She earned 1-to-1. And not only did she earn 1-to-1, she was only responsible for this part of the business. We have most of our business is PLG, and she's earning via variable off of PLG that she like doesn't touch. I was like, but we need to switch her to a comp plan that makes sense and like needs to have a threshold around this. It can't be 1-to-1 for every dollar. We're like a $20 million business. I'll just make that number up right now. And I was like, what? This is crazy to me. She's arguing that she needs to be on that comp plan and that she's not. Like, she is a shareholder in the organization, in the business. Is she not part of the board meetings? Does she not have like, I'm questioning why you have this person in the seat. Like, what are you doing having this person in the seat? This is a venture-backed business.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I like. I was asking questions about this person's back history. And of course, they had been a director at a bigger scaled company, came in early. And so they don't have the experience. So I am not frustrated at the ignorance. I'm frustrated at the education. You as a CEO, as a founder, need to educate your executive team on what it means to be an executive at your business. And for the CRO, if you come in, like Sam said, and said, hey, we we hit 70% of our number, but our CRO made $425,000 last year. That's a real thing that happened in 2020, 21, 22. That's a real thing that happened. It's nuts. And so the one thing that I will add, and I don't think it's conflictive with Sam, I think maybe it's additive. I would actually go, yes, you shouldn't uncap, or you shouldn't cap commission. I would add high accelerators and incentives, because that's not free money, but it's ultimately like, from a
100%.
plan perspective, you can pay a higher rate on that, and you should.
I've been thinking recently that the Pavilion Slack is like Quora used to be back in the day. It's just such a fascinating place to be. I spend a lot more time in it than I've ever spent before. One of the conversations that I was having a lot of fun being a part of was another compensation related discussion where people were debating if you should cap AE compensation. And the point I was making was,
individuals.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you want the AE to have the option to go and do 600% a plan, but their compensation's capped.
Why would you ever cap their?
Why would you cap their compensation? It's like you don't understand how a SaaS company works. Like you don't understand like the ability.
You want them to stop selling?
Like, I want them to do 600% to plan, but they're capped at 300%. There's no incentive to perform in that.
Who are these people?
So, but let me answer your question, Asa, that you asked about individuals. I would say best practice, if you can waterfall, meaning if you can take that, maybe it's not 70%, maybe you have what is called decelerators, but aren't technically decelerators. Pablo Dominguez argued with me last week, by the way, on what decelerators were. If you could take like, let's say 0 to 25%, you don't earn anything. 25 to 50%, you earn half your rate, and then like 50% to 100%, you could earn 1-to-1, or even 50 to 75%. You have like quartiles. Like I feel like that you step up function that allows the rep to start to understand the business mechanics of what makes a profitable
100%.
business. It's actually the right behavior. It's the right incentives.
My favorite one.
But if you have CRO,
one of the things I like to do with that is there's a certain point at which you can actually do a reactive accelerator. So a lot of the accelerators you see in the market is once you hit this number, the commission rate on all the following revenue will increase. But let's say you do 200% a plan. Maybe the incentive is if your commission rate will increase on every dollar of revenue you brought in. It's super attractive for the rep. The unit economics made sense. And it again drives in the point that after we pass a certain level, the profitability kicks in and we can do so much more. I've seen companies create a lot of energy within teams because of that. The others, AJ, to one of the things you were saying, the other side of that argument, not the other side, but I guess a point to that argument is a lot of these bad habits were established by VCs and founders who were doing these things for so long that people got used to it, right? Like these things were offered, they were designed and offered. There were boards that got together and said, I need that person to join my team. How do we make this comp really attractive? We'll pay you on everything. We'll do this. We'll do that. These were things that were done and offered and hence became thought of as the normal way to do it because we've done it for 10, 12, 15 years. And so now these revenue leaders are going through a moment where they're having to change what they thought was just status quo. But the mistake was made by the investors and CEOs is what their argument in return will be.
And it's not a terrible argument. We're all in this together. So like, let's fix this together. And be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Like that's just, you're a CRO, you're an executive. Either get in or get out.
What a beautiful place to end it. I like this conversation. This is good.
Great stuff. Great stuff. High five. Thanks for listening to Top Line Hotline, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to Top Line Hotline.